Hello, everyone. I am so excited because I have another story out of Southeast Missouri. This is just like lighting me up because I am so used to helping people all over the world. But then in my own neighborhood, I hear people say, don't touch my biscuits and gravy. Don't touch my cinnamon rolls. I got to have my chips and my soda. So, Bruce, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and doing this interview with me. Welcome.
Well, hello. How are you, Emily? I'm sure that you're doing well. Everything's looking fine.
Good, 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 good. Well, I can't wait to tell everybody your story. Bruce and I got connected through Nick Jennings, the other interview that I just did from Southeast Missouri. And he said, there's another one. And I was like, as soon as I had a chance, I got connected to you and tried to get this scheduled. Bruce, tell us first how old you are and how old you were when you started this journey.
I'm 65 years old, and back in I think 2018 or 17, I started with keto,
Okay.
and I started the transformation then because I was like 460 pounds. So I'm 6'4", and all of a sudden in 18 months I was down to 207.
Wow.
Uh, I'm like about, 215, 220 now
Mm-hmm.
after it'll be 2 years in July.
Wow.
And I think, I was real impressed with keto, but I'm even more impressed with carnivore because I had, all those GI symptoms and IBS type of stuff that the vegetables didn't help a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many heads of lettuce I ate with steak salads. And I love steak salad, but it was really the steak I liked more than the lettuce. But and it's just amazing to me on all of these diets how quickly they kill your carb cravings. And to me, besides the weight loss, that's like a huge deal because I've been a yo-yo dieter, since little. I've been heavy since I've been little. I
Mm.
mean, we're talking 165 pounds in first grade.
Wow.
And imagine that, back in 64 and that you didn't have a bunch of fat kids.
No.
I started out in a one-room schoolhouse, believe it or not. And then, the school closed, and so I had to move into town, and get a hold of more people, which again, when you're that big, is a really tough transition. You stick out like a sore thumb, having to have special desks and all that kind of stuff. And
Absolutely.
I hate to say it, but it's true. It really does scar you and color your whole thinking throughout life.
And I would
It's
think
kind of the
even like your identity.
right. I mean, and just like you never really feel good enough. You're
Mm.
always looking for that acceptance kind of thing. And but like I said, with doing the keto was a positive experience, and I said, man, I like that 207. Now everybody else thought I was anorexic looking, and and thought it was terrible. In fact, right now, the doctor told me I go to like a weight loss doctor. That's kind of an offshoot of bariatric surgery, and he told me, he goes, with your age, uh, you need to stop at 220. And it's like, why? I said 6'4" and 200 pounds isn't Ethiopian, And he's like, oh, you need it in case you get sick, you have that, buffer, if you really start losing weight. And it's like, well, if I'm at 200 and I lose that much weight, it was time for me to go anyway then.
Yeah.
Kind of my feelings. It's like, because no, after all these years of that, why do I want fluff? You know, because I really don't need it. I don't see a purpose in it.
So Bruce, tell
Yeah.
me what kind of foods or what was your relationship with food before keto?
A terrible binge eater. I
Okay.
know you probably never I know you probably have never heard that before, but that's like, I have family now. It's like, "Oh, it's so much more expensive." And I said, "Well, but is it in comparison to the large Casey's pizza and the large bag of Doritos and the half gallon of ice cream all in one sitting, and probably could ate another half gallon of ice cream." Because there's just no limit. There's no satiety triggering stuff going on. And you can just eat that all day long
Mm-hmm.
as planned by, the manufacturers.
Absolutely. They hit that bliss point. And I found also that they got me to go from salty, sweet to savory and salty. And I would just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It was just endless between the pizza and the ice cream, and then the ice cream and the pizza, and then the
Right.
pizza and the ice cream. And I just never stopped.
Yeah. And it's hard because it does turn into, a social event.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, with my wife, she's never had, my kind of, weight issues. And I mean, she would laugh if you told her to do carnivore. She just wouldn't do it. I mean, if she didn't have her biscuits and gravy and, mashed potatoes and mac and cheese, just not interested. And a lot of people are that way, and they don't even recognize sugar and carb addictions.
Yeah.
They just think, well, they like it, and they're going to do what they want. They really have no idea on how badly it's affecting their health.
And I think they don't understand what it feels like to have food freedom.
Right. They don't understand the addiction part of, there's some people who just, they eat heavy, but they're not really addicted. It's just like with people on alcohol and drugs. Some people, are heavy users, but they don't have that same addictive kind of thing going on.
Yeah. So what did keto look like for you whenever you switched from biscuits and gravies and cinnamon roll? What did you eat on keto?
Oh, mine was, well, I like I said, I had a lot of steak salads, and then I would have pretty much, any veggie, frozen veggies and meat. And I'd have like a few big, like say 4 big strawberries, once in a while peanut butter, and that was really pretty much it. And like, because I said I did well, I went from like 460 down to 207 in 18 months.
It's amazing.
It's faster than now, but now I'm a few years older, and this last year for me has been horrendous as far as health goes.
Hmm.
And I, like I said, I hope people don't try to pin that on the diet, because it's like, well, is it, a few years of eating, low carb type of thing, or is it the 60 years prior
Yeah,
of, being a binge eater? But,
exactly.
and plus, well, first of all, I started out with arthritis. Now, my mother had psoriatic arthritis, and huge, she had severe cases of the plaque psoriasis. And so I kind of, got into that. And then finally, they said, they wouldn't diagnose it as an inflammatory type of thing because, well, you're fat, so they don't look any farther. It's
Wow.
obviously it's obviously osteoarthritis, an overuse kind of thing. And then finally, I went to one of the rheumatologists in the city that was affiliated with WashU, and she's like, "Well, no, you're pretty classic signs of the psoriatic arthritis." Well, then you come up with the problem. Well, what are we going to do about it? Well, if you know anything about the whole protocol, you have all these anti-malaria, anti-cancer, type of drugs, and the new class of biologics that are all there for one main purpose, to kill off your immune system. Unfortunately, it did. And
Wow.
it came to a head because one morning I couldn't get out of bed,
Hmm.
and I hurt so bad, and I told my wife, I said, "Oh, it's just a lumbar strain, and I've had these before." Because I'm like Nick, I've worked EMS for 30 plus years,
Wow.
and back in 1981, you had two-man cots where you went all the way to the ground and all the way up every time you loaded and unloaded. There comes my Medicare call. Anyway, uh, my back was hurting really bad, and after a week, it didn't get any better. So I said, "Well, I really need to do something." So I went over to the emergency room, had to get taken by ambulance. Uh, from I'm like I was a quarter mile away from my local hospital down here in Sullivan, and had to be transferred over to Mercy, the bigger hospital in Washington.
Mhm.
Uh, well, it just so happens, with my luck, the only MRI that I would fit into was broke
Wow.
down. So here I am, 3:30 in the morning, having to be taken into, Big Mercy in the city.
Mhm.
So I get down there and they do evaluations and everything, because I'm telling them, if you want to do an MRI on me, you're going to have to call in anesthesiology and put me out, because I can't stand to lay flat. So they do all their evaluation, and they were going to send me home because they thought it would just hurt me more than what they would actually find. Well, after some blood tests and blood cultures, they said, your white count's up and all of this. So then they said, well, we got to do the MRI. And I don't, the first time around, I'm not sure if they gave me anything. They might have done like a conscious sedation where it's not really put all the way out, but you don't really feel anything either.
Yeah.
So they did that, and they found out that, oh, you have osteomyelitis in the entire lumbar area, all the way down to the sacroiliac joint.
Wow.
And so they, brought me back and told me that bad news. And they said, "Have you ever had back surgeries or anything, or been hurt?" And I said, "No, not that I really know of, or can trace. I mean, yeah, I've fallen before, but can't really trace it to that." And so then, luckily, the smart doctors down there said, "Since you've got this going on, we really need to do a transesophageal echo to make sure your heart's okay." Well, guess what? It wasn't.
Wow.
So then they found out that I had, well, what's it called, vegetation on my aortic valve. So they said, we're gonna have to replace this. And most of the time, with the old ways of doing it, you had to get a zipper right down the sternum.
Yep.
They just, crack you open like a dead fish.
Yep.
And so anyway, I said, I can't even move. How am I going to even, navigate? And so they're like, well, this isn't the best time. We understand that, but there comes a point of no return, because back July, in July of 22, they told me that I had heart failure with an ejection fraction of 32, and normal is 50 to 60.
Wow.
So, in fact, I think that's probably what motivated me to start on the carnivore.
Really?
It's like I'm just not going out like this, especially when I know that I felt, 100 times better at 207. I mean, they did like 10 different tests, up until that point. They did all, the sleep study. I had to get on CPAP. Um, they did, the PET scan, make sure that I didn't have any cancers. Just all kinds. Well, in fact, I did have. Now, I don't know if this is related, but I had COVID a couple times, and they found out I had bilateral pulmonary embolisms, blood clots in both lungs.
Mm.
So then they started me on this Xarelto, and it just kind of was going downhill from that point. So I said, okay, if I need the valve replacement, I need it. Well, luckily they come up. One of the associates down there in cardiothoracic had a new technique to where, instead of splitting you right down the sternum, they come over to the right side, they cut like the third rib, move it out of the way, and then come up your groin.
Wow.
And that's how they put in a pig valve.
Wow.
And so recovery time on that is, almost nothing. I mean, it's like a week in comparison to six to 12 weeks.
Wow.
And I thought, well, okay, they got it replaced. I don't feel too bad. This was like a Monday, and so by Saturday I'm going home. So I thought everything was okay. I got home and stuff. Well, I got up to go to the bathroom, and I started to feel weak. I was going to go just around the corner to the bed. I didn't even make it to the bed. My wife had to catch me, lay me down on the floor, and the next thing I know, police and EMS were there.
Wow.
So then they took me, like I said, then they took me to the ER, and the doctors over there I used to work with. He was one of my medical directors,
Hmm.
and he said, "You need telemetry, a telemetry bed." And they only had that at Washington. I said, "Okay." So they sent me over to Washington. I get over. Luckily, too, another part of the story. Luckily, do you know what I mean by a Holter monitor?
Uh,
30-day, a
where, yeah,
30-day monitor that
yes,
they used to put around your neck, a box. Well, now they just have a little deal they put on your chest and they Bluetooth it to a phone.
yes.
So luckily, it caught the whole deal on there. And what happened is my heart rate went up to 220, and atrial fibrillation that they call AFib with RVR, which is rapid ventricular response. Well, when it goes 220, you're not taking in enough blood to pump out.
Okay.
So that's why I had this, passing out syncopal episode. And so I get over there to Washington, everything seems kosher. And the next day I thought, well, I'll try, I need to use a bedside commode. Okay, so I get up on the bedside commode and oh, same thing. Nurses had to, catch me, put me on the floor. Next thing I know, I wake up with them bagging me and the pads already on my chest. And except this time, instead of being that atrial fib, it's now what they call ventricular tachycardia, which is one of those shockable, rhythms. So and the worst, I think the worst part of all of it is when they have to, pick me up, uh, and move me to bed because of the back thing.
Yeah.
The back thing is just excruciating. So they put me back to bed. The doctor's like, well, we really need to do something now. I said, because of the valve replacement, the heart's irritable. So that's when they took me in. Like this was a Monday, so by Thursday they took me in and put in a pacemaker defibrillator that they call the Cadillac model because they had wires for both chambers of the ventricles and one for the top.
Wow.
But I haven't had any trouble with that. But I'm still now I'm still like over 6 months with my back. And I'm just now to where I can barely walk. I walk like I'm 80.
Mm,
Oh, I guess I'm close. I guess I'm close. But yeah, I was having to use a walker. And, when I was going to therapy, rehab, my daughter has a rehab unit down. I don't know if you know where Herman Hospital is. It's a really small hospital. But, they have what they call swing beds that they have to get you back in shape in 3 weeks. Well, there wasn't any doing that. I was in so much pain, and they probably thought, "What a whiner."
uh,
But I told them, I said, "I hurt," and I had to come back, again the second time for rehab, and I said, "Well, now it's a fair fight," because I was just in there like less than a week, and felt like I could do the stuff.
I-
But that's still, like I said, that's still giving me trouble, and I called back up, to the people who diagnosed me with the osteomyelitis there in the city, the infection control doctor, and so they did some blood tests, and my markers said that I wasn't. The next thing is go talk to the spine surgeon,
wow.
which which, if you know anything about that, it's like they never have anything good to tell you. It's either you'll get better, you'll get worse, or you'll stay the same.
Yeah.
Plus,
So in this journey,
you have
where
all
did
the
you start carnivore?
right there when they told me that I had the congestive heart failure back in July of 22.
Okay. And what did that look like with you eating keto? What did you switch to? What did you eat on carnivore?
Oh, just basically, hamburgers and scrambled eggs. And of course I'll eat other stuff because I'll eat turkey, from the deli. I had this bad habit of every other day being a charcuterie board because I like salami. And I mean, when I eat that, I'll eat like a half a pound with Swiss at a time. And but back when I started losing weight, it wasn't that big a deal. I lose anyway. Now that I'm, closer down to goal weight, yeah, it's really frustrating. And like I said, I weighed under 220 like yesterday, and then I'm 3 pounds over that. I'm like 222, today. It's like it makes no sense.
So
My
what?
my really only
Oh, go
my
ahead.
really only bad habit is I'm still highly addicted to Diet Mountain Dew.
Oh, yeah.
Now I don't know if that's causing the arthritic type of stuff, but that's the only complaint I had is most people say they have all this pain relief. I'm still waiting for it. I
Hmm.
still have a lot of
Maybe it's the
arthritic
Mountain Dew.
pain. Maybe it is. I hope not. Uh, in fact, a few weeks ago, I called up the rheumatologist because I mean, right away when they found out I had the osteomyelitis and all that, took me off of all my arthritis medicine. So now I don't have anything other than Tylenol,
Wow.
you know. And so she said, well, I'll give you, a 3-week course here of steroids, which is like, oh, good. Because, they say steroids put a weight on you. And it's like, that's the last thing I need. But I've went through all that and didn't have a problem with weight gain. I mean, and as far as exercise, I've been pretty darn immobile for the last 8 months. I'm just now getting to where I'm going back to the gym to try to do some of that body recomposition, which kind of looks ridiculous considering, the weights I have to use are all really minimal because of the bad joints. I've
Yeah.
had both hips replaced. I had both hips replaced, a shoulder replaced, and need the other one replaced.
So whenever you went from keto to carnivore, what difference did you notice?
Um, the GI symptoms, and actually that even took a long time. I think the GI stuff didn't start getting better until about the last 3 months. I mean, now it's like I have more control because before, I mean, I have all this explosive diarrhea. I could barely control it. I mean, it's like when I had to go, I better be within a few steps of the bathroom. Uh, to where now, I don't have that same kind of, diarrhea, or it's like I can plan my bathroom trips a little better and more effectively, as opposed to, being out on the road and not being able to make it, and having messes and stuff.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing
that was,
what vegetables will do.
yeah. And it's not like I dislike them, or even now, if we go to the steakhouse or anything, I'll get like a salad. No, but I don't notice a big deal. I'll
Really?
usually, yeah, I'll usually, try to get like corn because my wife likes corn, so I don't have to take it. I don't eat any of the broccoli. I have eaten some green beans, but I haven't really noticed any difference from any of that. It's just I don't do it very often. But and of course the weight loss doctor, oh, you need to, eat that stuff to make it more sustainable. And it's like, no, I do fine, sustaining it without all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you had said that you heard a really interesting talk with Dr. Barry talking about the ADA and then something new. So, let us know what that was about.
Yes. Well, you know that Dr. Berry is really disenchanted with a lot of organized medicine now and organized groups. Well, like he says, they just published, a recipe book of all this, ADA approved stuff, because they'll tell people, oh yeah, it's perfectly fine for breakfast to eat yogurt with berries and granola. And any of us know that'll just shoot your blood sugar up like crazy. So he's come up with an alternative. He's trying to form what he calls the ADS, which is the American Diabetic Society. And once people find out about us being able to actually treat diabetes and actually cure it and have people come off of their 300 units of insulin a day within 6 months, that they'll just become irrelevant.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. And he talked, it'll probably get challenged in court. You might have, all of uh, the left trying to legislate against it since they want to get rid of all the cows, you know, being so unhealthy to the planet, which, is kind of ridiculous if you think you're actually going to have an effect on that. Or like he says, they made a big deal about how they got rid of plastic straws, right? And if you know how much plastic is put in trash every day in a hospital, I mean, it would seem ridiculous to even worry about that. And
Absolutely.
again, a lot of it is metabolic, it's disease processes that have been caused by metabolic problems. And like he says, over 90% of the people are metabolically unhealthy. And doctors don't even take seriously the markers for it. Most of them, they don't even worry about fasting insulins unless that's their specialty. Now, my doctor, my weight loss doctor did, because that's kind of, his thing. And luckily, I have a really good primary that listens to, most everything I say about keto and carnivore and all this. And, for the most part, it's like, man, the proof's in the pudding. I mean, they were really, they wanted to sign me up for bariatric surgery and, actually like this is, my only salvation. And it's like, it really isn't. My daughter's had it done, and there's, a whole list of problems associated with it.
Wow.
Um, so I've never been a bariatric surgery person. I think what scared me off is I had to have my gallbladder taken out at 29.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know how they say fair, fat, and 40? Well, I was a little early, and they took it out at 29, and I had, like a big 8-inch incision, across the belly, because this was right when laparoscopic surgery was coming into play. Unfortunately, back then I had no insurance.
Oh,
So, they're like, oh, it's better to do it this way because, less chance of spillage and developing peritonitis. And it's like, well, okay, was it that or was it I didn't have insurance?
mm,
But, yeah, I had a lot of trouble. I mean, the incision got infected. And so it looked, it looks awful even to this day. And, like right now, and after all the surgeries and stuff I've been through lately, it's like, I don't, at one time I want to have skin removal. And of course, my daughter, she's a nurse practitioner, and she's like, "Dad, you're 60, years old. What the, mm, you know, what the f?" And it's like, honey, that this has always been a black cloud over my head.
mm-hmm,
Because again, I've been huge since I've been little.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember just little stuff like, how they used to have the little toy, the rocking horses that were on springs.
Yeah.
I broke mine.
Mm,
And then that's I was almost too big for mom to hold me.
mm.
And that's just very traumatizing. Um, So, and if people, are worried about me getting anorexic, it's like, sorry, I'm going to ride this train. I'm not going to be anorexic. Or I tell them it's like, I don't want to lose weight. I just want to lose fat.
Yeah.
Now, it may be difficult to separate the two, and it may be again, it may be really difficult at 65 to do. And with my arthritis status, it's hard to, it's not like I'm going to be in the next CrossFit, you know, uh, competition.
Yeah. Well, and Bruce, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story because a lot of people they are just so grateful to have this for them. But sharing your story and having you show us how you did it, it really gives other people a scaffolding. So if somebody else was in your shoes and starting this out, what advice would you give them?
I would say give this a real chance. Try it for the 30 days minimum, preferably 90 days, and realize that your first couple weeks is like a drug withdrawal.
Yes.
So in order to help prepare for that mentally and get electrolyte, go to the store and get electrolyte solutions, better than Gatorade and Powerade and all that. That isn't enough. I said if you have to, get some kind of even like a Crystal Light and put in a teaspoon of salt, to give yourself, enough salt because you will dehydrate badly. Uh, and of course you need it. It's probably 25 pounds of harmful fluid that you have built up, but it's like it's so worth it. Like I said, the food freedom, can being able to go through the day without wanting to graze all day long, and a constant feeling of hunger, and knowing even though you're getting the half gallon ice cream, that probably won't get it. Or like I said, the large Casey's pizza, well, that may, you know, fill you up for a while, but then why do you have to go after that to the bag of Doritos? And the half gallon of ice cream. It's like I've known for years and years and years that there's something that just ain't right, but didn't know what to do about it.
Yeah.
And now they're actually coming up with an answer. Don't be afraid of all the bull that you're going to develop heart disease and you're going to develop, cancer, and you're going to, ruin your liver and your kidneys. And, that just isn't true. Um, there's so many more health benefits from eating fatty red meat. And I suggest fatty red meat, and especially, you younger women who, are wanting to have kids, the hormone, straightening out the hormones with the added fat is essential. Um, and I've always had, myself, I've had hormone issues. Well, again, looking back, it's because of all the sugar and all the carbohydrates that probably ruined all that when I was young.
Yeah.
In fact, now it's been a fight. I think Dr. Berry would probably say that that's totally wrong, but it's been a fight, for me keeping hormones at this age now, because they're like, well, it makes you more prone to the blood clots.
Wow.
Like, I talked to like Men's Health Clinic in San Luis, and they said, no, you probably need to get weekly injections because that's kind of like the half-life thing. But so far I've been, like, every 2 weeks and, trying to keep, track of that. But if I don't, like they had me off of for like a 3-month period and mine tanked. I mean, like if 300 is normal, mine's like 30. It's
Wow.
terrible. Um, but now I think I'm coming back slowly but surely. Hopefully, the longer I eat carnivore, the better it'll get. Um, yeah, I would tell people because there's so much fear and misinformation. People are all afraid that, well, if I eat fatty red meat, I'm going to have a heart attack, within a year, or I'm going to have a stroke. And
Yeah.
it's like, and I know my dad had a stroke when he was 62 and was, an an invalid basically for the next 15 years.
Mm.
But looking back on his history, he had the same kind of, eating problems and ate the same kind of food. Now they never worried about, low fat or, or anything like that. But I mean, the amount of carbs, the amount of sugars, the amount of food in general, I think led to it. And my mom has the same problems. Like I said, my dad lived to 77 and my mom lived to like 84.
Mm.
But again, finally at those advanced ages, the sugar catches up with you. She wound up having a stroke, but again, always, really overweight, as long as I can remember. And it's just sad that people have to go down like that when it doesn't really need to happen, you know. Uh, I said most, and a lot of problems is people don't even know, they wouldn't even classify the fact that they like to eat pie or anything as a food addict, but so many people are.
Oh
Or
yeah.
the people will tell you, "Oh, I'm not giving up I'm not giving up my ice cream, or I'm
Mm.
not giving up, such and such." It's like, well, okay, but do you eat it? How often do you eat it? You know, how much do you eat? I know I had all the classic, I might as well have been a heroin addict because
Oh
I
yeah.
had all the same classic, food hiding and shame after you eat and all that. The only one symptom I didn't have is I was never bulimic because I can't stand doing that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's the most nasty thing ever. But yeah, and in fact, I would pray that everybody, because you know how many people out there are suffering.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go anywhere. You can go to any shopping mall. You can go to any fair,
Walmart.
anything. And yeah, Walmart, you can see how many people are suffering.
Yep.
And it just really doesn't need to be that way. I even have hope that one of these days I'll be able to walk, decently. Right
That
now I'm stuck in my house unless I have my wife, help me down 2 steps. And a lot of it is just fear, with that back pain. It's just, a fear of falling because it's really affected balance and all that a lot too.
yeah.
And I know some of that comes with age. Um,
Yeah. Well,
but
Bruce, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story because it's really not very common in Southeast Missouri. And I thank you so much for your time and your story. And I would love to follow up with you and just see how it goes.
please do. And I want to thank all of the influencers here on YouTube, because I think that that's one of the things that got me through all this hospital stuff. Because it would have been so easy to say, well, what's the point? And well, did the diet cause it? And it's like, by listening to them, and their reassurance in that, it gave me enough peace of mind and strength. And like, when they talk about you have to have a really strong why,
Yeah.
and as opposed to, looking good in jeans now, I think I'm more focused on, health in general. And I have a 6-year-old at home, and I definitely want to see him graduate.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So, but
Awesome.
yeah, it was nice talking to you today. Uh, do you do a lot of these interviews?
Yeah, I mean, I don't do as much as I used to, but yeah, I definitely do these at least once a month, sometimes more, just because I I love the science. I love all of the, scientific journal articles and everything, but for me, I needed the story. And so I
Uh,
shared the stories because that's really authentic. And I know that there's some good scientific journal articles out there and some good studies, but I also worry about the corruption. And whenever I can just
yeah.
hear from somebody's gut and I can just hear their true authentic story, that speaks to me louder than any evidence.
Did
Um,
did did you have any of these issues?
um, Any of what issues?
Like, as far as with, the food, the binging or the weight or any of that?
Yeah. I didn't know that I was overweight, because everybody in Southeast Missouri, all the other women look like bowling balls. So I
Oh,
just
so
thought I just looked like everybody else at Walmart. Like it wasn't
so
on my
you're
radar
saying
to lose
you're saying
weight.
everybody you're saying all the girls are corn fed?
Yep. Absolutely. Eating their biscuits and gravy and their cinnamon rolls for sure.
And that's something I remember being out when I was younger at the bar one night and looking around and thinking, man, we all need some Jenny Craig. Because I mean, there wasn't like one female in there that was normal weight.
If they were meth heads.
Right, right.
Yeah, because we definitely have that in Southeast Missouri. But no, I was a binge eater and didn't even know it because that's what everybody else did, But
Uh-huh.
I was a little bit more excessive than everybody else. Like when I would make chocolate chip cookies, I would make two batches so that I could eat the dough of one batch and then I could eat the baked cookies of the other batch.
Uh-huh.
I just never stopped. Entire pizzas by myself, ice cream, the entire carton by
I mean,
myself.
everybody doesn't do that.
I I know. But yeah, it's totally changed my life just to eat hamburgers and chicken wings and ribeyes. Totally changed my life.
How do people get a hold of you?
I have emilypenton.com. And then they can get my email address there. They can follow me on, Facebook or Instagram or
I
YouTube.
was gonna say, don't you say that there's not very many people here in Missouri that have come forward, or I'm sure plenty of people need it, but haven't come forward to you?
I'm talking more about like my local friends and family and people that I used to work with. They hear what I do and they're like, "Oh my gosh." Like they don't even want to talk to me about stepping away from their biscuits and gravy.
I'm so glad I'm so glad you said that, because it is hard when you don't have. I won't say that my wife doesn't support it because she's seen that it's had, a positive effect. But as far as liking it, not so much. Because again, you have to have two different sets of meals.
Yeah.
And it makes it a little more difficult. Or again, when you go out, it's not like you can buy $5 ribeyes. you know.
No, no, not at all. Well, and that's why I started the YouTube channel so that I can just share to the people who want to hear. Because I don't want to talk to, my friends if they don't want to hear my story. That's okay.
Right.
They're not obviously at rock bottom yet. I was at rock bottom. And so
Just
I
out of curiosity, do they think that you're that you'll regain it? Do they have doubts that you'll maintain it?
it's been 5 years now, so I don't hear that anymore. I just think that they think it's excessive.
See,
But for me,
yeah.
it's a place of safety. I feel so much security in that food freedom that I don't have to think about my food every 2 to 4 hours. I think about it like once a day, maybe.
Right, right. That's the trouble. I think I'll have to be doing it at least 5 years just to have any street cred. Because everybody who knows me knows it's been lifelong yo-yo, up and down, and um, I don't know that I've ever, before the diets, I would always do like they said, and try to do, moderate amounts of everything, like meats. Trying to do an athletic type of, so much meat, so much carbs, so much vegetables, and that kind of thing. But if you're not a moderator, that doesn't work.
Nope.
And to try to tell people like that, they just don't even have a concept of needing to be an abstainer.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and they refuse to look at it on the same terms as being an alcoholic, or a meth head, or any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I came down to it Bruce, where I had to have just it for my own satiety, my own healing, that it just didn't matter what anybody else thought. Like it
Right.
doesn't. It doesn't matter what they think. I know illness and sickness, and I know wellness, and I know how good this feels. And so I don't really have to convince anybody else because of my results are so evident to me. And so I
Was
just let them go do whatever they want to do.
the addiction part, and the food freedom, is that the main part for you?
It's yeah, it's pretty much everything for me. I started out because I had debilitating mental illness. I had a bipolar disorder that turned into rapid cycling, and at my most, I was on 900 milligrams of lithium, and I still wasn't functioning. And so whenever that went away, I was just like, oh, okay, I don't care. I'm going to eat burgers and ribeyes for the rest of my life to have joy, to experience
Right.
mental clarity. And then the food freedom was like, are you kidding me? Like, I couldn't believe that I
Right.
didn't even care about donuts and cake and pie. Like, I see it and I'm like, oh, that's cute. And I remember how that tasted, but this feels so good. This feels
Right.
better than anything else.
Right. Or have you heard some of the podcasts talking about the anorexics?
No.
And yeah, they're basically, the medical community tell the dietitians that it doesn't make any difference. A calories a calorie. They just need calories. So, it's perfectly fine to, give them pie and cookies and shakes because that's what they need. And they just refuse to look at the fact that no, if they're eating, you know, ribeye, or if they're eating, fatty red meats and have, added fat, that's going to help them mentally, and they won't shy away from it. And plus, psychologically, they'll be thinking, "Oh, well, I won't gain weight now because I'm eating meat."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're more likely to do it, as opposed to, if you give them a pie and stuff, they're thinking, "Well, they're just trying to fatten me up."
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
and and there's been several of them that have been helped. Or, like that, what's her name? She's a dietitian. She wrote the Dietitian's Dilemma,
Hmm.
Amber O'Hearn. She graphically tells about how, she was mistreated when she was 12, being put in a psych unit, and them trying to, cram all that crap down her, and
Yeah.
told her that she would never recover and she would probably die with this, and it's just awful.
Yeah.
It's terrible how the medical community has evolved
And that's why we need
into
to keep telling
corporate.
these stories.
Right. Right. I'm a big fan of that. I hope everything we can do to help out Carrie and all that, hope we do. And in fact, did you say you were going to have a meetup down there?
In Tennessee, in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, I'm leaving
Um,
Friday, so it starts April 26th through. I'll be there through May 2nd with Wired for Healing. We're gonna do. It's called Meat Stock instead of
uh-huh.
Woodstock. It's Meat Stock, and Dr. Sean Baker's gonna be there, and Kelly Hogan, and like 20 other people. So I'm super excited.
Do you know, I was down there within the last maybe 3 or 4 years. Funny story is, we're driving down this paved one lane kind of road, okay, by a creek, and it's like, 15-foot drop off into the creek, no street lights or anything like that. Uh, GPS isn't working, so all of a sudden we're thinking, oh my goodness, we can hear both banjos, playing. And all of a sudden we come out of the clearing and we're in the middle of Pigeon Forge.
There
And
you go.
we thought we were so lost. The only bad thing down there is, if you're a breakfast eater, there's a pancake house on every corner.
I've heard that. I've heard
We
that.
we we stayed at the hotel that's right across from Texas Roadhouse. that's a bright point. I love Texas Roadhouse. But, yeah, it
Awesome.
was just so funny. It's like we were on our way to Florida because, being old, we just can't drive 16 hours anymore. We have to make these strategic stops, just in order to get there.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
but
Well,
yeah,
Bruce,
pancake
thank-
shops. Okay.
yeah.
I'll let you go.
No, thank you so much for telling your story. I really appreciate it. Is it okay if I put your email address in the show notes so that if
Yeah.
people have questions, they can email you?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So
That's
if,
perfectly fine.
if you guys have questions for Bruce, just look in the show notes, send him an email. And Bruce, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, okay. Thank you. When is this going to be posted?
Just a second.